Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be working on fixing some paint chips on the Audi's hood. Stay tuned.
Alright, so the paint's really not perfect on this, and we're going to make another video of really fixing this paint up properly. But first thing we got to do is, so here's a really bad one. Here's a bad paint chip. So you can see it went down to the metal and it started rusting. That's a pretty bad one. Here's an even worse one. It's even bigger. So there's a lot of nasty paint chips on this hood. So we're going to show you today how I fix these things.
Okay guys, so the first step here is, you can see there's really a raised edge around this thing. You gotta take your X-Acto knife and you just gotta chip away at the paint that's lifted up, that's not bonded with the metal right now. Just like this. Alright, so now you can see everything that's left here, everything around this paint chip is bonded pretty well to the hood. So now what you want to do is, since you got your paint chip all cleaned up, you got all the loose paint kind of taken off, you see there's a lot of rust in there. You need to get the rust out so we can put some primer down. So when you see your hood or your body panels rusting, it means there's no primer left. We got to put something down on there. We got to clean it up first to make sure it bonds pretty good. So what you do is I got some 1000 grit sandpaper here. 1000 grit and a hole punch. So essentially you just go through, make a couple holes in here, open up this, then you take your favorite super glue and you go out and get your daughter or your son's pencils and you just glue it right on the end. And then what you do is you can use this end with a sandpaper on it to kind of clean this up. Okay, and then when you think you've got it cleaned up enough, all you got to do is, I got in this bowl some paint thinner. Just get a Q-tip and just go around the edges, make sure it all gets cleaned up. So really all you're trying to do when you do this is really knock down the edges here of the paint chip. So when you want to pass your finger over it, it's nice and smooth. There's a nice transition from the bare metal up to the painted area, and then you're good to go. So you're gonna see when you're sanding, you're obviously gonna be scratching your paint here all the way around. Don't worry about that. We're gonna fill it in and we're gonna have to sand it off and buff it with a dual action polisher or whatever you want to use to polish your hood. But yeah, we're gonna polish those out eventually.
Okay, so many minutes later, you can see every one of these. There's a whole bunch of them. They're a lot more noticeable now. They're all sanded down. There's a big one up here as well. It's nice and smooth. So the next thing we got to do now is, because it's down to bare metal, we need to make sure we get some primer on there. Okay, so for primer, you're really supposed to use some self-etching primer. I didn't have any laying around, so I just got this stuff here. It's just some gray primer. But anyway, went to the dollar store. I bought some of these little mixing bowls. It's supposed to be for kids' paint, and I got a really fine brush. And for really the big ones, I'm going to be using the brush. I'm going to be putting a really light layer of primer on the paint.
Okay, so I took my spray can, I sprayed it into this bowl. Now I'm just going to dip this fine brush in there, and I'm just going to put a really light layer and make sure not to get any of this primer on the paint. Now you want to put a light layer because you're going to have to put some actual body paint, you know, some car paint over this. So you want this level to still be lower than your paint on your hood.
Alright guys, so you can see here, I've let these dry. They're nice and filled in, still low compared to the car's paint. But you see just how many I have, right? So I have some OEM Volkswagen paint here, so it's the exact color match. Now this one here comes with a clear coat, and then this is the color coat here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small amount of each, mix them together, essentially make like a single stage paint, so like the clear and the color is all in one. And then I'm going to dab it with a with a brush into the big ones, and then there's this pretty nifty tool here. Let me take it out for you. Okay, yeah. So this is it here. Essentially, this is like it's essentially a pencil for paint. You put your paint in a little holder, and then you just dab this on the hood, and the paint will come out in a very fine manner. So the only thing is they give you this really small pick here. You can hardly see it. That's how you clean your nozzle. So if you don't want this thing to become a one-time use, you got to make sure you clean it after every time you use it.
So this time when you apply your paint, you want to make sure that you are definitely higher in the paint chip area than you are in the surrounding area, right? So what you're going to want to do is after you put this paint on there, we're going to give it a couple days to dry, and then after that we're going to come back and sand it down to make sure that it's flat with the rest of the hood. So you want it to be a little bit high. So if you have to come back and do a couple coats of this, that's fine. Okay, so now I've done all the really big ones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and load this little paint pen thing. Essentially, I'm just going to take a bunch of this paint and dip it into the paint pen like so. Like that. So now you can see, if you can, it's full paint. Now you can see a couple of spots on the bumper here that are pretty bad. All you do is you take your paint pencil, just dab it a couple times until the paint starts coming out, and then there you go. Got one there. Easily just fill in these little paint chips. Now these ones here, you're probably not going to come back and sand these off because they're so small anyway. So you can see already it looks 100 times better. Alright guys, so I got most of it done. Here's a pretty good look at what it looks like after it's been filled in. I put 2 coats on there just to make sure that it's higher than the paint so we can sand it down. And then I did the bumpers. These look pretty bad. I can still use a little bit of touch up on here. But overall this looks significantly better than it did. Like here's another one. So yeah, so what you're seeing here is a bit of the colors that is a little different. The outside is sanded, right? So it's going to be lighter. The inside is the actual paint. But when you actually going to sand it down, get it all rough, and then you're going to polish it, I think it's going to end up looking exactly the same. This is, like I said, this is OEM paint, so I'm not too concerned about the color. I think it'll all come out to be good. So at this point, you're just going to leave it for a couple days. You don't want to start sanding if your paint is not 100% dry. So we're going to leave it for about 2 days, and then we'll catch up with you then. So the other thing I wanted to mention was this tool. Anyway, it's a fine line painting pen. This thing works awesome. It just puts just the right amount of paint down for just itty bitty little rock chips. So it's almost perfect for the whole front bumper. The only thing is you want to make sure when you're using it that you're tapping and this is at a vertical angle. If you're trying to do the bumper, the paint's not going to come out, so you have to kind of get it on the side and kind of tap it.
Anyway, it works really well. Definitely recommend it. This is like $10. It worked perfect.
Alright guys, so it's been a couple days. Now what we gotta do is we gotta sand down the high spots on those paint chips that we filled. So I got some 2000 grit sandpaper, I got some water and some soap. There's soapy solution in here. And we're gonna go ahead and wet sand really lightly on the hood where we filled up those spots. So check it out. Alright guys, one thing I almost forgot is before you start sanding, you need to make sure you clay bar your car. So I got some Chemical Guys, the lube, the clay luber, and then just the regular old or OG clay bar from Chemical Guys. So we're gonna go ahead and spray this down and clay the area before we start sanding it. All right, so I just ripped off a small piece of clay bar. We're gonna go ahead and spray down the surface, spray down the clay. Then you just go ahead and go over the whole surface in both directions. Now for this one, I'm just gonna do the whole hood. And that's because I'm gonna end up polishing the whole hood. I got little paint chips everywhere, so it's really easy to tell when you've done it enough. It kind of just smooths real easily on the surface. Otherwise, it's gonna feel gritty on the paint. And then when you see you have enough, it's all dirty all around here. All you do is you knead this thing. Okay, so here's the spots here. You can see it looks like it's pretty much flush with the paint, but obviously the edges, if you can tell, they're just a little bit higher from where you know, we put some touch-up paint on top of the existing paint. So we gotta smooth that out. There's another one here. So anyway, all right guys, so what I got is my sandpaper wrapped in a sponge just to give it some backing that's not too stiff, and then my soapy water. So we're going to go ahead and wet this a little bit, this area, and give it some very light strokes here. All right, so at this point it's pretty much level. All we gotta do now is we gotta polish it out.
All right guys, so you can see what it looks like here after we clay barred and then we sanded the paint. You can still see the chip, right? So this is normal. It's because the clear around this is you know, it's kind of scratched up, and this is essentially a single stage paint. So what we have to do now is we have to polish this out. So just to give you an idea of the starting stage of the hood, it's in really rough shape. It's not pretty at all. There's paint chips everywhere, right? Hopefully this all comes out, but you know, I sanded all this. But there's a lot of defects on this. Let me just show you. I was telling you why we wanted to go a little high on the paint. You can see this chip here. I don't have enough filler in there, and you could just start to see the edges and stuff. So that's why you want to have an excess amount of paint. You know, the paint to be higher than the hood paint, and then you sand it down. So hopefully we don't notice that too much in the final product. Okay, so the next step is to start by polishing. So I went out and bought a Harbor Freight dual action polisher. They were on sale for like 50 bucks. It's totally worth it. The only thing though is I read online the reviews on this thing. You could see this backing plate. Look at the wobble it's got on it. And I guess they all have that. So I went out and bought a Lake Country backing plate. This is a 6-inch unit, and the matching Lake Country pads. So this is an orange pad for the cutting and a white pad for finishing. Okay, so I put the new backing plate on the dual action polisher, and the products I'm going to use today are Chemical Guys V36 and V38. So the V36 is your cutting compound, and then the V38 is your fine polish. You just put 6 or 8 little dime-sized dabs of cutting compound on here. And we're going to start with the biggest paint chip, which is right in the middle of the hood. So wrap the cord around your shoulder. And right now we're going to set the speed to 1. The point being, we don't want to fling all this compound everywhere. So we're just going to set it down. Alright, now we can go ahead and speed it up and actually do the work here. So we're going to turn this up to about 4.5 or 5.
and give it a shot. So I got a fresh microfiber towel, and we're just gonna go ahead and clean this up. So, I mean, it was in pretty rough shape before, but it's obviously not done. But the paint chip is still there. You can still kind of see it, but the rest of the hood, holy moly, it looks good. Like, look at the difference here. You know, it was really oxidized. And so you can still see a lot of swirls and stuff in here. So I'm gonna say this is definitely not done. It needs a couple more passes, but I mean, already this looks amazing just on the rest of the hood. What I'm thinking with the paint chip is that since it's a metal flake, it's really hard to get it perfect. It kind of, you know, with a paintbrush kind of thing. So that might never actually polish out completely. But I mean, looking at it from 10 feet away, this looks way better than a rough spot. And then it's not going to propagate as well. So anyway, let's keep going here. Okay, so you remember I told you guys how I thought all these, you know, these paint chips were filled in and they were all going to be level. Well, I thought it was. But once you get it right polished, you can really see if there's any imperfections. So I'm trying to kind of show you, but it's hard to see on camera, but right there you can see how it doesn't look like anything and it doesn't feel like anything, but if there's any kind of imperfection there, you can see it because it's so shiny. The other thing is I went with the 2000 grit, and it might even be that the 2000 grit is a little bit too coarse. You can see there's a lot of scratches right around where the paint chip is. Here's another one here. Everywhere else, I mean, there's almost no scratches. So maybe the best option here is just to go with like a, you know, 3000 grit. Might take you a little bit longer and more sanding, but it might be worth it. But anyway, so you can see just how well this is working. I mean, I'm amazed. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the hood, and then we'll show you the end result here. Alright guys, so this is what it kind of looks like after just the first compounding stage. You know, it's extremely nice. You know, I'd almost be okay with leaving it like this, but I know it could be better, so we have a polish stage now we're gonna do. So I ended up putting the white pad on the dual action polisher. We're gonna use the V38, and hopefully it'll be even nicer. Now, one thing I want to mention here is I wasn't able to get every single one of these scratches out. This hood, like I told you, is in pretty rough shape. I think I needed, you know, I went over these spots like 3 times at least, each of these with the dual action. So I think I just need some, you know, some more aggressive compound. But you know, I'm happy with this. It's a 15-year-old car. It looks great. Alright, so I did this little corner here with the finishing compound, and like you can see it, it's gonna be hard to see on camera, but right about here you can see there's a little bit of a distinction. This is a little more you know, white, and this is a little more deep color. So yeah, I think going over the hood, the whole hood once with this finishing compound is gonna be all it needs, and then we'll show you the end result in a couple minutes here. Alright guys, so there's the hood. The 2-stage, you know, the compound and the polish are both done. It looks magical. Anyway, so the only thing left is obviously my big 6-inch polisher. Couldn't get these little things and the whole front bumper. So I went ahead and I clay barred the front bumper. What I'm gonna do is I was thinking ahead, and I actually ordered a drill polishing pad. So I got a bunch of them here, so hopefully this works. I have no idea, so we're gonna take it nice and slow. We're gonna do both the polishing
or the compound and the polishing stages with the drill and see how that works. All right, so just to give you an idea, this is like the before. Pretty dull, right, compared to the rest of the hood. This is pretty dull. I don't know if you can really see. Anyway, here's the other side after. Okay, there you go. There's my reflection. That's pretty shiny. I might give it one more pass with the cutting compound, and then we'll do one polish, I think. Yeah.